what's your job? Everybody asks when you meet them, hey, what do you do? And you usually say, your job, right? Now, I work for the Department of Corrections. I've been doing that for 10 years. And I have an interview today for the Sterling Fire Department. And that's an important aspect when you greet somebody. You guys say what you do, I'm sure, when somebody asks what you do. You don't say, oh, I like to watch TV every night, or anything like that, right? Annabelle. Put that up. Wait, show them. What is your job? Annabelle helped me make that with Peter. Say everybody clap your hands.
Everybody clap your hands.
Good job. Thank you. You want to come back up later? Okay. Thank you, Annabelle. Very good. Okay. And let me pull up some notes. So, growing up, my dad always wanted to be a preacher. And I just went back to Washington and met actually one of his Bible study, one of his teachers that when he was real young. And his Bible study teacher always saw him as he was going to become a preacher when he was, 5 years old, a little bit older. And so that was one of his goals. And we always put kind of on the aspect of a parallel to Moses, because my dad took a long time to become a pastor. And, he always preached to the cows was his audience when he was on the dairy farm and everything like that. That was his passion. Whatever his job was, he was called the preacher. He always preached to his employees. Always preached the good news, let them know where his life was, and he wanted to share the gospel to them. So Moses, Annabelle, could you hold these up? Moses was 80 years old before he started. And so my dad thought he took a long time. When did you start?
39.
39? So Moses lived 120. We live, around 85, let's say. So that would be in parallel to today's number is 56 when you start. And he's 54 now, so he didn't quite do the Moses deal because he still has another 2 years before he reaches that moment, right? So maybe, I don't know, maybe there's something even larger that's going on in 2 years. Because my dad's always been very motivated and enthusiastic in what he does. And what he's doing right now is he's been wanting to do it for a little while, but he has this video that he does little workout sessions in the morning, teaches people how to make breakfast, teaches them how to do oil changes on their car, and he's been doing that daily. I don't know if any of you guys have followed him, but it's pretty neat. And what he does in that is he always puts the gospel in there. And he has hundreds of followers, 5:30 in the morning. So it's pretty cool around the world doing that. So who knows what more God has for him and any of you guys. One thing is my life, I always want to serve God. That's my passion, wherever I'm at. And I think most of you guys here, that's your passion too. And it doesn't really matter what you're doing, as long as you're serving God, and that's the important thing, wherever you're working at. So, me working at the Department of Corrections, maybe a firefighter, who cares? God really doesn't care my career. It matters what I do in that career, how I put myself forward, how I serve God. And there's benefits. Oh, awesome. Thank you, Annabelle. You want to, hey, do you want to say anything? No? Thank you. Everyone's clapping for you. Thank you, Annabelle. So sometimes I think, when is God going to use me for something great? And maybe some of you guys think that God could use you at any time. This is retirement age, right? For some people. And God could, look how extraordinary God used Moses after that age. I mean, he thought he was kind of unmotivated. He had actually good schooling and everything. He was good at speech, but when God told him to speak, he said, hey, I don't know how to speak. Because he got kind of discouraged. But God could use you at any time. It doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter what your occupation is. But one thing is, for your occupation, why are you working? Are you working? What kind of blessing are you looking to receive? Because work, you do receive a blessing, right? You receive, honestly, I love where I'm at right now. I had a lot of good stuff. I'm able to provide for my family. My wife is able to stay home with the kids. I've been blessed with my job. And so jobs are awesome. But the best thing is to be able to serve God. And look at some of the lives. Paul, he really didn't receive much blessing here on earth from a worldly point of view, right? He says, if I go on living in the body, this will mean fruitful labor for me. Yet what shall I choose? I do not know. I am torn between the two. I desire to depart and be with Christ, which is better by far. He was in prison when he wrote this. And his occupation was full service for God. That was his job. His master was God. That was his employer. That's what he did. And his blessing, worldly blessing, was he was in prison. He was being persecuted. And then in 2 Timothy 4:7-8, Paul says, I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, I have kept the faith. Now there is in store for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award me on that day. God has an awesome reward for us, better than any job out there. And if we're able to serve Him with everything we have, He has that blessing for us. It doesn't matter all the persecutions here on earth, or we don't see a lot of persecution, but even being a pastor, there's actually a lot of judgment being a pastor. There's hard times being in a position of full ministry. I've seen people be judged for having nice vehicles. You're judged for maybe even being too poor. You're judged for maybe having I don't know, a lot of
Wild kids.
wild kids. And that was, Paul was one example of, you know what, he really didn't receive the blessing yet, but he's going to receive an awesome blessing, and he knew it. But not everybody, God doesn't treat everybody exactly the same. We don't have all the same life. So you can't judge people on that aspect. It's just on how you live for God. For instance, Job. Job, he was a man after God. He was very wise, one of the best well-known men in the East in that time. People looked up to him, came to his house all the time. But God took away almost everything from him. And his friends were judging him of, hey, you denied God. You have sin in your life. You have something wrong with you. But they said, Job said, I have denied the desires of the poor. I have not denied the desires of the poor, or let the eyes of the widow grow weary. If I have kept my bread to myself, not sharing it with the fatherless, but from my youth, I've reared them as a father would. And from my birth I guided the widow. If I have seen anything perishing or lack of clothing, or the needy without garments, I took care of them. If I ever said to gold, you are my security, if I have rejoiced over my great wealth, the fortune my hands had gained, if I have regarded the sun in its radiance, I would be judged. But I have not done so. After God took away that, God restored him 2 times as much as what he had before. And so you could live rich and live for God if your focus is correctly. But the rich, you have to be careful, for God says in Luke 6:24, but woe to you who are rich, for you have already received your comfort. But the blessing, I'll close out with the blessings for serving God. It is therefore, since we are surrounded, actually, I'm going to go with, for the Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory. This is Matthew 16:27. With his angels, and then he will reward each person according to what he has done. And I just want to thank anyone who's serving God in their life and given all they could to God. And it's sometimes could be difficult. I'm telling you, it's much more than pursuing any career, any kind of job that could give you comfort on this earth. God will give you 100 times more if you leave anything behind. 100 times more is what he says than what you could get here. So, thank you for serving God in your life, Dad. I appreciate that. I look up to that, and everybody else does too. So thank you.